Hello, LJ. Here we are recording our next episode of Wednesday Weekly Chats with Lark and LJ. So, by way of introduction, I am Lark Ambrose. I'm a mental fitness trainer, I'm a mindset coach, and your favorite accountability buddy. I work primarily with women between the ages of 43 to 58 who are in some kind of transition, what I like to call chaos. Everybody's chaos looks different, but maybe you need help navigating through that chaos to some level of clarity before you can take that focused action. So that's me. That's what I do. LJ.
So my name is LJ Vio, and I am a coach and facilitator. And my main area of focus is around helping emerging, aspiring, new, existing, experienced leaders, managers become the leaders that their teams need them to be. Also have a big interest and focus in self-awareness, which is where we align, Lark.
Beautifully. Yes, indeed. That's one big common ground that we share. So awesome. Based on our passions, we approach our coaching practices with many modalities, but what we have chosen to work with for the purposes of these courses and for these episodes are mental fitness and Luminous Spark. So I will, just so that we're all on the same page, because we're going to throw some terminology out there throughout the next 10, 15 minutes. We want to make sure that we're all understanding the same thing when we say the words that we use. So I will just start with a short outline, basics of what mental fitness is. And when I say things like saboteur sensation, blah, 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 we know what they mean. And then I'll give you the opportunity to share also a context of Luminous Spark. So mental fitness, like when we think of our bodies, right? We think of fitness as in getting stronger and more able to handle what the demands of the body are. Similarly, with mental fitness, we're seeking to do the same thing, but for our minds. And so we do that by building three core muscles. The first of which is the saboteur interceptor, and interceptor of saboteurs. And saboteurs are behaviors that don't serve us, thoughts that don't serve us, feelings that don't serve us. Common ones: avoider, people pleaser. These are ones that I think are so used, overused. People can relate to that. Then we have our sage powers that we're working on building, and those allow us for creativity and inquiry and insight and reflective thought and navigating our way through to making clear, laser-focused action. And then lastly, we have what's called the self-command muscle, and that's the one that allows us to shift out of being in that hijacked state when the saboteurs are in control to the sage part of our brain, where we can actually rely more on that creativity and empathy. So that's mental fitness in a nutshell. LJ, share with us a little framework about what Luminous Spark does. How does it work? What is it all about?
Wonderful. So Luminous Spark is a personality assessment that is a little different than some others that are out there. It measures 24 qualities in 3 different states. And it also measures things that are opposite. So it measures introversion and it measures extroversion. It doesn't make assumptions that if you're high in one, that you're low in the other. So you can be both, which is wonderful. Paradoxical, but wonderful. The 3 states that it measures would be in the underlying. So that is your comfiest state. It's who you are when you're on your own. It's who you are when you're with your closest friends and family. It doesn't take any energy to be there. It's just how you are. When we're in the everyday state, that is when you choose to make conscious decisions about how to behave. And that may be because you have to for work, for example, or you think you have to. And then the last state, that the persona that is measured, is the overextended. So under stress, what happens to some of those effective qualities that you have in your underlying and in your everyday under stress? And this is where it aligns beautifully with the saboteurs in the overextended state.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. So I think we're all on the same common ground right now. Each week we're addressing a new personality trait behavior when effective and when overextended. and the corresponding saboteur. So that's our intertwining. This week, we're going to be talking danger ahead, alert, alert, alert. So tell us, LJ, how does this align with Lumina's personality qualities?
Well, the one that I think aligns the closest to the saboteur that we're talking about of hypervigilance is cautious when it gets overextended into change resistance. So cautious, which is you would see in your underlying or your everyday, there's an instinct to be cautious, to always take a conservative approach to different situations, to be skeptical of new ideas, and a reluctance to challenge tradition or a reluctance to move away from tried and true methods. So this, if some of those words that I used resonate, it might be you, or it might be somebody that you know or work with. But what are some of the underlying strengths that hypervigilance over abuses or is
Awesome.
abusing?
Yeah, great question. So we have 10 saboteurs, 3 of which have hyper in front of them. And so hypervigilant, as the name suggests, taps into the vigilance, which can be quite useful. Someone who is vigilant can be perceived to be sensitive of the true risks and of dangers to self, to others, institutions, community. They're oftentimes the one who institutes systems and structures to improve order and stability. So we can see how those will really add value, right? These are the ones who are probably in business, keeping a business compliant with the established rules, who keep their friends and family out of danger, right? Because they are super tuned in to all that's going on around. So those are some of the strengths, underlying strengths, that the hyper vigilant is absolutely abusing.
It brings to mind the compliance officers, for example, or ethics officers. And I can see how cautious or vigilant can be quite helpful. And so we're talking about these can be strengths. So a couple of situations that come to mind, if someone like me, who's the complete opposite, likes to change things up, is coming in and trying to change things up, somebody who's more on the cautious side or the vigilant side might be asking me really great questions to help me see that the benefits of the status quo, for example, point out what works well rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as I might have a tendency to do, for example. When we think of hypervigilant, how might that show up when we go over to that extreme? How might that show up, Lark?
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting share. When you were speaking earlier about yourself and maybe a tendency to toss all that stuff out, you reminded me of my early auditor days. I started my career on Wall Street, like I was an auditor. We are all about the rules and compliance and making sure, because we don't want things to go wrong. We don't want our clients to get into trouble with the SEC, et cetera. So we have to really make sure everything is to the T, However, how that can now, as you would say, in an overextended state or in mental fitness, when you're hijacked and when the saboteur is in control, you are now chronically stressed out. You are always anxious and you have doubts about self and others. And so you can truly, you live in that place that's always fear-based, right? You're suspicious of what others are up to. You're super sensitive to all of the danger signals. You're not gonna miss any. So that hypervigilant state can be really hard to live with. So when I'm talking about this, I'm hoping that if anyone is hearing this, they can recognize it not as a personality flaw or something that they're stuck with. We can learn to navigate how not to be so chronically exhausted and draining those around us by the crying wolf syndrome. Every danger, everybody's got to be corralled. And we can really go overboard with our vigilance. So that's what we're talking about here, hypervigilance. So how does the overextension of cautious show up?
Very similarly, and my blood pressure, I think, was going up as you were talking about the stress. So when cautious is somebody who prefers caution or that quality, when they're stressed, when they're under pressure, it can turn into transition into change resistant. They can be seen as skeptical or critical, some of the words that you mentioned. Critical in the way they view change. They prefer what they know, that's okay. They don't look fondly on what's unknown, and they will resist the unknown. They doubt everything, and their instinct is to just resist change. They dig their heels in. They're cynical of good ideas that might come up in a meeting, for example, and they risk being viewed as narrow-minded or set in their ways. I think of kind of like a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
Not necessarily fun to be around.
And again, like when we think of teams that we've been on, committees that we sit on, just boardrooms, right? We may immediately have someone leap to mind who always brings in the doom and gloom to every sunny situation, right? And so what we're looking for is balance, because we need both. We need both. We need that freedom and expression and that levity, but we also need that grounding, that person who can actually identify where are the potential pitfalls here. So always want to ensure that when we say hypervigilance, we're not saying it's a bad thing. We're saying it is abusing the underlying strengths. And so what we want to work with people on is to help them tap back into the strengths and learn to be okay with what's driving that chronic sense of anxiety, you know? So yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted to highlight today. When I heard you talk about the change resistance, I can see such great parallels and similarities with the hypervigilance, you know, where we're looking at the overdose of cynicism and skepticism, which means that we're missing out on positive experiences. You know, we're avoiding new ways of doing things. And that can be quite isolating. We can push people away, you know, so just hopefully this landed with someone's. And so, you know, as we begin to see more and more of ourselves, we seek to live in a place of sage, of empathy, of calm, of clear laser thinking. And we are inviting everyone listening to this, either on a replay or the same day that it's posted, to take some time and do some reflection. Think about your thinking patterns and behaviors, and come share it with us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on our LinkedIn platform, our audio live event. And I know you always have some great quotes to close us out with, LJ, so let me invite you to share.
So the first one is from Buddha. And I love this. It's so relevant to our discussion today. Change is never painful. Resistance to change is painful. The second one is from Stephen Covey. Self-awareness involves deep personal honesty. It comes from asking and answering hard questions. And that really highlights to me what we do as coaches, as we are raising self-awareness through the mental fitness and through Lumina and other ways as well.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, LJ, for once again sitting down, having this on camera discussion, and us working continuously in just showing how we can draw from our different modalities, intertwine them, and just create something absolutely amazing. You know, when we can actually understand our personality traits and understand ourselves better, we know what we can then work on building to navigate through. Hence the beautiful, powerful combination of Lumina Spark and mental fitness. So that's all we have for this particular episode. Hope we see you on the LinkedIn stage, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesdays. And feel free to reach out to LJ. Feel free to reach out to me in our inboxes. We look forward to that. Send us your questions, drop us comments. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.